What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And first off, I kind of apologize for the background, but I'm trying to do this quick. And there's really not much to say, actually. Rowel sort of says it all. And I'm going to show you the messages that she sent me on Instagram. And I'm going to show you my reply, in which I told her that I would be airing these messages. And she actually hearted it. And so before I get into that, just a recap for those that might be unaware, and I will link to the playlist. So I encourage you guys to go check it out. There's 3 other videos in this series. Jase Korleone, Jason Mathis, and a guy named Mac Minister from San Francisco, well known in rap circles and hip hop circles and entertainment circles out of the Bay Area, going back many years, are both serving multiple life sentences for the murder of Fat Tone out of Kansas City and a guy named Cocaine Cowboy who was with him and is also out of Kansas City. They got killed in Vegas several years back, 17 or so years ago, allegedly in retaliation for the murder of Mac Dre in Kansas City. And so both very high profile cases, both got a lot of news coverage. Mac Minister was on America's Most Wanted. There was pictures of Jase Korleone's house and whatnot. Anyways, Jase Korleone's baby's mother, whose name is Rowel, voluntarily went to the police station and talked to Las Vegas police officers in the San Francisco Police Department and said basically that Jason Korleone had told her all of these details about the murder and that he was responsible. She confused stuff that she saw on the internet with stuff that he allegedly told her, so on and so forth. Jase Korleone and Mac Minister are both fighting their cases and remain in the Department of Corrections in Nevada as we speak. In the first videos, I show the entire footage from within the San Francisco Police Department of Rowel's statement, right? It's in a 3-part video. In some of that, Jason Mathis actually calls in. He's a friend of mine. We talk on the phone fairly often. And so he calls in and expresses himself and his status. I will link to his CashApp in the description of this video for anybody that wants to look out for him and bless him with a couple dollars, man. I myself and many of you viewers know what it's like to be incarcerated. So with that said, what I'm going to do is show these Instagram messages that she sent me. And she sent them to me in response to seeing the YouTube videos that feature her prominently telling on Jason Mathis, right? And so let's go. I'm going to share my screen and go through them, and then I'll give you a little bit of my opinion afterwards. Let's see. Okay. So first off is this. And I will read them for you guys that are listening but not able to watch, but obviously you can read it on the screen. That is Rowel. She is the person in the video. She sent me this message, these series of messages a while back, but for various reasons, I was unable to respond. One of which was I was debating whether to put this stuff out there, to be honest. And so this is the first message. Okay, now that you got his side of the story, at least hear mine, and you decide what's true and what's false. I will even allow you to do your own homework to decide. I thought the part about allowing me was interesting. I have done my homework. I haven't just taken Jason Mathis's word for it. I've spoke to many people. I've looked up a lot of stuff. I've connected a lot of dots. I've evaluated his case and the way that he was convicted. So I've done my research. I've done my due diligence. And I, not to be arrogant, but I do what I want. And so I don't really wait for people to allow me to do anything. You decide what's true and what's false. I will even allow you to do your homework to decide. I just wanted to show that these messages were in sync with each other. Yes, I did make the tape, and God knows I was dead wrong for it. There you have it. There's more messages that I'm going to show. But if there's nothing else to say, there's this. Yes, I did make the tape, and God knows I was dead wrong for it. I blacked out some of her other comments, and I will explain to you why afterwards. And I also told her why. Let's move on. Let's keep in mind, I was very young mother and still very young at the time. This was 17 years ago. So I went along, I believe is what she meant to say. So I went along with what the officers asked me to do out of spite for Jason, but quickly felt it was a mistake and I never should have done it. Now, for those of you guys that haven't seen it, go back and watch the videos. and hear what she says and what the depth of which she makes these statements and the detail in these statements, which most of it is public information, and the rest of it apparently came from the police officers, because she says, I went along with what the officers asked me to do. And and there is allegations, I think very credible ones, of a corrupt investigation and corrupt officers. There's a lot there, right? And some of that's been talked about in those other videos. Next message. I honestly don't know why after all this time he wants to do this. He has had this video for at least 15 years and hasn't aired it. So why now? Yes, some of the things he is saying is true. And what she means by that are the things that he says in our conversations that were recorded with his permission on the previous videos. But if you can find a mutual person who knows me and knows Jason, they will shed some light on our relationship and what it was. That's irrelevant to me, and I'll get into it in a second. But just again to point out, I honestly don't know why after all this time he wants to do this. Yeah. Why would somebody facing 4 life sentences want to put out a video of their baby's mama lying about them in a double homicide? Come on, man. And I feel honored, honestly, that Jase partnered with me on this and trusted me and this channel to put out this information. And those videos, her statement is shown in its entirety. Before the recording came on, while the recording was on, after the recording was over, as she walked out the door. I did not cut it or edit it except to make it shorter and put it through a series. But where I left off is exactly where I pick up with the next one. I'm not into the okie doke, and I'm not into BSing people. That's not how I get down. Message number 5. Here is something our son pulled up on the internet. And I'm not going to show that. It's just news articles. Mind you, our son is the only person who is being hurt by this. Now, I think Jase, and he might, end up calling in, right, while this premieres. And I think I'm going to run a live afterwards, and I'm going to reach out to him. And it's difficult phone access while you're incarcerated. But if he has the opportunity, I'm sure he'll tap in. And if not, I will post a future video of his thoughts on these messages. I have sent him copies of these messages, but just recently, right? And so he's actually seeing these for the first time today as well. So again, here's something our son pulled up on the internet. Mind you, our son is the only person who's being hurt by this. Yeah, not the dude who's going to be killed by the state of Nevada the long way, right? By staying in prison for his natural life. He's not being harmed by this whatsoever. Mind you, this that she talks about is the false statement that she gave to police that was a significant, if not a primary factor in him going to prison. I tried to keep it away from him, but at the same time, let him know so the streets won't eat him up about it. Yeah, I'm going to leave that statement as it is. What I will say is in my opinion, her son didn't do nothing wrong. Her son didn't talk to the police. Her son was a child when this happened. And it's not only her son, it's their son. And you will notice even in her statement to the police that I showed, she constantly refers to the child as her child, as if the child was from the Immaculate Conception and has no father. Here is my response, right? And it's kind of a long response. I'll try to blow it up right here for the people that are reading along. And this was today at 10:08 a.m. It's now 11:40. I'm surprised you reached out, but welcome it. This is my words. Considering all this came about courtesy of me and Jason, of course, in a public fashion, I'm thinking you won't mind me posting this on my channel as well. Either way, that's what I have decided to do because it is absolutely relevant. What I'm not going to do is share every word of every one of those messages you sent me, though I will not distort anything you said. As I said, you guys read it and heard typed words. I'm not concerned with the dynamics of your relationship, and I have no way to test the truth of what, stay tuned, to test the truth of what, let me see if I can expand this, sorry, of what you are saying. I do know from your words 17 years ago and your words now What I do know from your words 17 years ago and your words now is that you told the police the father of your child murdered 2 people and he is now serving multiple life sentences for those, and that you freely admit you lied. I'm not interested in providing you a platform to express your grievances or otherwise explain your reasons. Perhaps there are more facts, perhaps not, but the only one I'm concerned with is what I already stated. And she hearted the message, right? She read it, she hearted it, and I have not heard from her since. I don't necessarily anticipate to hear from her at all in the future. Maybe, maybe not. So she said a lot of things, and I'm not going to repeat what she said in those other messages, because if I was going to do that, I might as well show the messages, right? But I will say that they involved her reasoning. They involved her view of their relationship historically. They involved a lot of ancillary, right? A lot of kind of outside factors. In my opinion, and perhaps I'm not correct in this, but from the approach that I have sought to take in this from day one, my view is she told on a man who is in prison for the rest of his natural life for a crime that he asserts he did not commit. I have no reason to believe that he is not telling the truth. I have seen the details of his case, and there was absolutely misconduct in his case. One brief point is San Francisco, when he was first arrested and he had his preliminary hearing, right, where the district attorney presents the outline of the evidence that they believe should lead the judge to keep him in custody and for them to move forward with a prosecution of him for these crimes. At that preliminary hearing, the judge said there's not enough evidence, and I will give you a limited amount of time to find evidence to prosecute this man. But as it stands, you have no case. What they did then was go to a grand jury. In a grand jury, as many of you know, it is a much larger pool of people. It does not have to be unanimous, right? So it's not like a traditional trial jury. And the prosecutor gets to present whatever evidence they want. It can be hearsay. It can be evidence that would never be admissible in an actual trial. They can say and do whatever they want. The people in the grand jury can ask questions of witnesses. They can have whole ass conversations, right? The DA is under no obligation to present any kind of what they call exculpatory evidence or evidence that the DA is aware of that would suggest that the person being accused may not be guilty. Now, in a regular trial, there is a legal obligation to do that. Whether it happens or not is a crapshoot in California, but technically it's supposed to happen. In a grand jury, there is no expectation of that. There is no defense attorney there. There is nobody representing the defendant there. The defendant gets a notice that a grand jury has been convened, but that's it, right? So it is an entirely slanted one-way process. And then if the grand jury comes back and says, yes, we think there's enough evidence to indict this person, then, the person gets indicted and the proceedings move forward as if a judge at a prelim said, yes, there's enough evidence to move forward. Very, very rarely do you have a preliminary hearing that gets followed up by a grand jury indictment, right? Normally, you would pick one or the other, but you wouldn't do both. And in this case, they did both. And a DA can get a grand jury indictment for anything. There's an old saying, right, that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. It is such a one-sided, biased conversation that a DA can get anybody indicted for virtually anything that they want to. Now, whether that will hold up in trial or not is a whole different story, but they can get that. So that's what it did to Jase and Mathis, is they convened a grand jury, and that grand jury, not surprisingly, said, okay, there's enough evidence. Do you know who did not testify at the grand jury was Chanel Rowel? Do you know who did not testify at Jason Mathis's trial was Chanel Rowel? Her statement was central to the prosecution against him. This fool told his baby's mama everything. She never testified. you have a constitutional right to confront your accuser, right? And that's the U.S. Constitution. And Jason Mathis never got a chance to confront his accuser because she didn't show up. Normally in a trial, then that would be considered hearsay and it would not be able to be admitted. The jury would never hear her statement because she is alive and she is not coming to repeat that statement. So she can't be questioned. She can't be critiqued on what she said. In his case, they allowed it because a police officer used a loophole that I won't get into too much here because I got into it before in the video to say, hey, this was some spontaneous statement that she made. And so let me tell you what she said. So they are facing an appeal in federal court, right? Federal court is going to be more critical than state court. And they have evidentiary hearings, right? What's it called? Mac Minister just had an evidentiary hearing because there is new evidence. He also has new evidence of, and I haven't talked to him and he hasn't been featured on the videos, but they're co-defendants and they're rocking together and they're on good terms. They're not in the same prison, but neither one of them has cooperated whatsoever or tried to pass the buck to the other one because both of them assert their innocence. And if you really look at the case, their guilt has not been proven. There's also evidence that somebody who was an informant in the case or says that they were an informant in the case and says that they know what was going on and says that they have this evidence of what they heard was actually a tool of San Francisco Police Department and was incarcerated in a federal prison out of state at the time that he says he was hearing conversations or observing things or whatever. That fool was in the pen. He was brought out of prison to give this statement, but the timeline don't match up, right? Because how was you in the streets here and this and that when you was in prison hundreds of thousands, if not, miles away? So there's a lot of issues with this case. What I have zeroed in on is Chanel Rowel. A lot of people have never sat at a table and been interrogated by police. And so you don't really see what that looks like, right? Except on TV. And a lot of people have gotten incarcerated and still not necessarily seen what that process looks like because they weren't the ones cooperating. So I thought it would be interesting to show that. And it's warranted. I am a part of the Free Jase and Free Mac Minister campaign. I would love to see them released from prison because I don't think that they deserve to be there. I don't think that legally their guilt has been proven. But nonetheless, I said this was going to be a short one and I meant it. If you haven't caught up, man, check out the playlist. I will link to it. There's 3 videos. And Free Jase Korleone, man, and Free Mac Minister. And it's not just women that do it, but they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. She was pissed. Whether she deserved to be pissed or not is not my business. I don't have an opinion on that because it's not relevant. No matter how mad you get, you don't sit in front of the police and tell them that somebody did something that they didn't do. You shouldn't sit in front of the police and tell them anything, in my personal opinion, but you definitely should not sit there and falsely accuse somebody of stealing a Snickers bar, let alone of gunning down 2 people in Las Vegas. So there you go. There you have it. Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Check out the playlist, man. Look through the catalog. There's a variety of content. I talk about prison. I talk about the streets. I talk about mental health, addiction. I got interviews with a range of very interesting people, in my opinion, and there is always more to come. So feel free to like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you know when I drop more stuff, and tap in. Let me know if there's subjects you guys want to talk about, and let me know what you think of this, Anyways, man, you guys have a good one, and take care.